from the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Fort Mill, we're in South Carolina, in the shadow of Charlotte, and the foot of Mount Belzoni. This is the York County Democratic Party podcast, YouTube show, YCDP TV. And this is episode 3. We're up to episode 3. We haven't pod faded yet. Current events. And here to help me out with this one is Matt Vilardebo. Wait a minute.
Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm trying to make a thing go away. I'm trying to make that thing in the middle go away because it's not going to work with titles. This is how the sausage gets made, and I may edit this out or I may not. I do a little bit more editing on this show than I do on my other shows because everything else for me is a KISS thing. So this is episode 3, and that's all I know about it. At the end of the show, we might come up with a title, or we might not. I don't know. We might totally forget. But we have some things that we want to talk about. And the first thing is the podcast. You and I were talking about it at the Drinking Liberally in Tega Cay at last week. Yeah. Brand new Drinking Liberally. And that it was well attended. We'll talk about that. Talk about the Drinking Liberalies in a little bit, I guess. Yeah. And you have an interest in helping the podcast fly, which I think is great.
For sure.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we're going to declare you the regular co-host.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, as often as you can make it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it requires all this elaborate equipment. If I can't make it, probably there's not going to be much of a podcast. But if when you can make it, that will be great. But I would like to say something about that because here's 2 white dudes, one old, one relatively young, and the Democratic Party. See, this is the Democratic Party. I'm part of it. Is more diverse.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can show the whole thing. Democrats deliver. Excellent. We're way more diverse than this.
Absolutely.
The only problem is I don't have the contacts to reach out and get people to come be on the show. And you know a lot.
I can help with that for sure.
We need young people, people of color, people of other genders, people of non-specific genders. Everybody that the Republican Party wishes that would leave the country now and take up residence somewhere else and leave them alone because they don't like them to be around here. We want them on the show.
Well, and like for me, it's, the Democrat Party is made up of a broad spectrum of folks. We have a large umbrella and all are welcome under it. And it's always nice to roll out that representation in the best way possible. And it's not always best done with 2 codgy white guys. I'm almost 50. So I appreciate the compliment. I certainly don't feel young with all I'm dealing with.
Well,
but yes.
Yeah, you do have a lot of health issues. We can, and you don't hide them.
No.
I'm 73. So by comparison, you're still a young pup.
Yeah. But you are younger than my parents.
I could be your dad, though.
Ooh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. 50, says 20. Yeah, I'd be a young parent, but I'd be, 23. So 23 when I would have had kids. By the way, I never did. Don't have a family. You're a parent. You got kids. They're
but mine are little. I have a little adult and a full-on adult. My son, I got a 20-year-old who's actually been able to vote for his dad in 2 different elections.
Right.
And I got a soon-to-be voter. She'll turn 18 in November.
Yep. And I guess we should say, I don't think that we have anybody in the audience who doesn't know, but you were a candidate for state representative.
Correct. State House District 26.
Yep. And you were a candidate for Fort Mill Town Council before that.
Correct. The at-large seat that was won by Chris Wolf. Yes.
Okay. And you were badly whooped in the state representative election.
I was more whooped in the town council election.
Even worse than that one? All right.
That was a woodshed whooping. But yeah, I mean, I was definitely trounced by Representative Felder. That was a big surprise for me. I wasn't expecting that big a margin of victory, but
okay,
it happened.
And I have that next on our list of things to talk to. But I want to keep on talking a little bit more about the podcast and the YouTube show, which is not, by the way, a podcast yet. We're working on getting the audio version out there because I like audio podcasts. I do too. I like YouTube shows, but the audio podcasts are more portable.
I'm a regular guest on a podcast out of Columbia called the All About Nothing podcast, and they've got me as like a regular contributor. You'll be seeing me appear more with them also throughout this year.
Cool. And what is it again? It's
called the All About Nothing podcast. It originates out of Columbia. A guy named Barrett Gruber hosts it. He's actually going to be a candidate for state rep in 2024. He's already announced his candidacy and begun building his war chest and preparing for that election cycle.
So he's down in Columbia. Is it a political show?
No, it's more, they do political stuff. They were very active during this last election with having candidates come in. They invited all candidates, but only the Democrats accepted. So they had a lot of the candidates for State House, and Judd Larkins, who ran against Joe Wilson for Congress, was on there. They got a broad audience. I mean, well into the thousands on their downloads. So, but it's just whatever guy talk. Not guy. It's hard to explain. A lot of pop culture, a lot of nerdiness, a lot of politics.
So in other words, it's fun.
Yeah. It's kind of podcast you can sit there and have a drink while you're doing it.
Yeah, as opposed to, say, a political podcast, which may or may not be fun. I'm trying to be a little more
professional here.
Well, now you see, that's the thing. Because if we want an audience, and one of the things that people said about the episode 1 that I did with John Kralovich, our party chairman for York County, is that it was fun to listen to.
Yeah, and John was amazing. That was a great podcast.
It was a good launch
episode. I love seeing John on there. A lot of leaders, Democrat Party leaders in the state, have been hiding in their rabbit warrens after the election, and John has not. So, I mean, I commend him for his courage and being a forward-facing leader. Leaders get out in front of it, and other folks get behind it. And I'm certainly proud to have John as our county chair, and that was very informative. He was very forthcoming, and that's the sort of things we need. We need folks seeing our leaders and people who kind of champion the party get a better chance to interact with us outside of quick little clips or brief interactions in public settings.
Yeah, and that is a big part of my goal for doing a show like this. I mean, I've been here now coming up on 2 years, and I've been wanting to get something going in media, which has been my background, and I'm retired broadcast, multi-talented, no talent at all in multiple areas. Engineer.
Oh, man, you're super talented, dude, Gary.
Thank you. I fished for that, and I reeled it in. So I've been broadcast engineer, I've been air talent, I've been disc jockey, things like that. So this is my busman's holiday and what I get to do in my retirement and have a good time.
And for what it's worth, for the folks listening at home, I have a lot of broadcast experience also. I had a radio show in college for a whole semester. That's right. And it only broadcast on campus at the University of South Florida in Tampa. So a big time radio show I had there in college. I've made multiple podcast appearances, been on the Today Show and local media plenty of times. So
you got lots of media experience.
I tend to be comfortable in front of a camera and microphone.
Yeah. So my goal is, again, to bring people in the party, officials in the party, members of the party, members of the public who, if you want to be in the Democratic Party, if you want to be in the Democratic Party, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all it takes is
There's
the desire to be there.
Litmus test. There's no, blood work or anything.
Yeah. I got a shirt that I got for marching in the 4th of July parade in Baxter Village.
There you go.
So, do you have a membership card?
No, I do not, but,
I don't believe there's any such thing.
I've paid the iron price, as they say in Game of Thrones.
Well, yeah, you've done that. All I've done is sit here talking into a mic and a camera. So again, the goal is to bring people onto the show so that everybody gets to know who people are, which is something that for 2 years I've found missing. I see people showing up on the Facebook group, and I've been to a few meetings and I've run into some people. And I went to the one convention that we had and saw a lot of people talk, but didn't really get to know anybody. And so this is the goal for doing that. But you were talking about doing a podcast that was topics that are all a lot of fun, and politics can get a little dry.
It can. I try to make it fun. I feel like I bring like a little bit of wit and my little sort of madness to things. I feel like I kind of have done a good job of being the kind of person that doesn't take himself too seriously. And if I have not done a good job of that, I should start trying harder, because I am not that guy.
And if you need anyone to help, if either of us need someone to help, let me work on this again, work on the language a little bit, and no editing on that. If either of us need someone to help ourselves take ourselves less seriously, we'll probably poke some holes in each other.
Oh, for sure.
Little pinpricks. I mean, we don't know each other really well, but we work together on a little bit. Oh, and yeah. I got a feeling we're going to get to know each other a whole lot better. So we'll try to make it fun. We'll try to make it listenable and viewable, and something that you really want to tune in. And one of my problems is that I make long shows. My other shows tend to be 2.5 hours. We may try to keep this a little bit shorter. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. There's some other things that we could do that I'm hoping we get a chance to do. Some short form stuff where people can make a direct pitch for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, something we can put on. What's that thing the kids are all looking at these days? The ticking and the talking? Do you do any TikTok?
Oh, it's been a while. I don't even think I got on it since the election.
Y'all, look at this sad state of affairs. Ray's banner has, shall we say, gone flaccid. So I'm going to put that thing back up.
Okay, so that's our goal. And we can do some shorter things as well as long discussion programs. There's a lot of wonky podcasts and shows, national stuff out there. There's some folks who try to make it fun. I don't know if you've ever looked at the Crooked Media folks, their podcasts, and then now they've added YouTube videos to them.
I like the Young Turks. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
I have, yeah. Yep.
That's kind of how I roll. I do like watching The Daily Show when I can. Always been a big fan of John Oliver there on HBO.
Yeah.
Used to like Bill Maher a lot more, but he kind of grates on me now. Although he has kind of come back to his left, if you were, post-COVID. I know during COVID he got real crazy.
Yeah. There's almost only so much time. And so if you decide that this is some of the media that you are willing to spend some time with, well, then we appreciate that. And we'll try to keep things somewhat local. Somewhat.
Yeah.
Somewhat. So you did go through the experience of running for a state house in the 2022 election, and I helped you with a little bit of that. You did some of your own media. In fact, you did a lot of looking into your phone, talking to Facebook, which I think is a real effective way to reach people. You're not scripted; you're just being real. But what's your experience with running at a candidate level like that?
So, I think John touched on some things that I would like to come back to. And that's the role of the state party, the county party, and the candidate. For me, I didn't really have that state party mechanism in place. So what I would need from the state party, or what they would contribute, I had to shoulder. John and the county party were very supportive of me. They did everything they could. But again, Democrats in general in the state are hamstrung by an almost inability to properly fundraise. Things cost money. None of these companies out there who do these things for Democrat candidates are doing them at a reduced rate or for, a payment plan or any such thing. They want their money and they charge quite a bit for it, rightfully so. It's everybody's got a right to make a living.
What kind of services were you out there buying?
Mailers, I'd rather have done 4 mailers, but, I kind of hit a wall at 20 grand on my fundraising. And, I did a lot of social media advertising, and a lot of folks saw that. I got great response from that, but I just couldn't fundraise to, I would have needed to raise $50,000, $70,000 to properly get out a mailer campaign and digital advertising campaign that could have got those Democrats who sat home to come to the polls. And looking at where I really went wrong was I spent a lot of time and devoted a lot of effort to trying to win Republican votes and swing Republican voters over. And that was a fool's errand on my part, and certainly not the most efficient use of my efforts.
Yeah, I remember you talking to me about that early on, and I helped you make a video when you were signing a no new tax pledge of some sort.
Yeah.
And that was an attempt for you to reach across, because that's not a Democratic position by any means.
No, I was one of 2 Democrats in the state that signed that freaking document.
It didn't do you any good, right?
Not a bit.
Yeah.
There's some legislative obstacles in this state that prevent us from putting ballot measures out. And, I think if the governor had to put things out to people to vote on, we would have medical marijuana in this state, and we would have, abortion protection in this state and things like that. But I'm off on a tangent there.
Yep.
As far as being a candidate in this election, it was tough for me to get volunteers. We need more from them, but everybody contributes in their own way. Ultimately, the vote is the most important effort we need. But, we do need some folks who are willing to go that extra mile and take it to the next level beyond that vote. My efforts on my own with this whole, Democrats Deliver message is, trying to excite people and keep people focused that, winning elections is going to be a multi-year effort in this state, and it's going to take constant pressure. Just waiting for elections to be enthusiastic isn't cutting it. We need to be breathing down the necks of these folks. I do feel like a positive coming out of my election loss is that I built a really good coalition in Fort Mill. 5,300 people voted for me, and I'm willing to bet you most of those people had some touch with me. They either met me, I knocked on their door, I left something on their door, they saw social media, and I'm willing to bet you the 10,000 or more, however many voted for Ray Felder, still have no idea who Ray Felder is, if she's a man or a woman, what sort of legislation she's ever written, put through, supported, not supported. They just know she's a Republican. The one-armed bandit really made a huge difference. I mean, the GOP on their
by that you mean
the straight party voting. We like to call it the one-armed bandit. That straight ticket voting, I know it benefits some Democrats, but I know those Democrats that it benefits would firmly back me on this. We trust Democrat voters. We trust voters to read the ballot and know who they're voting for. So we don't mind having that crutch pulled out. The Republicans, that's really been very beneficial to them in this state. I think when folks are forced to read the ballot and look at the candidates, I don't think it would swing elections, but I think it's a right direction move. It starts to pull away and sort of chip away at that hegemony they have in this state.
Yeah, if we can do it. I want to ask how you feel about trying to reach voters, how difficult it is.
So I was fortunate, and I knew I was going to run for state house before filing. So I had already kind of strategized that ground game I executed. I started early. Like the fundraising, I immediately funneled that fundraising dollars into getting lit printed so I could go knock doors early. I started in May or April, and I never let up. even as my neck issues came up, even as, on those bad Parkinson's days when I just couldn't do it, I did it. And I would say I personally hit almost 8,000 doors in that period of time. Did everybody come to the door? No. But did I walk those walks and walk up those driveways? Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you doing that in pain or just with difficulty to move, or both?
Yes. At the end of the year, social media always gives you like a tour your photographs. And I know as Facebook was going through, my wife and kids even noticed my hand. When you look at pictures in the beginning of my campaign, you'll see my hands usually up on folks' shoulders when I'm in pictures with them. And then once that neck issue creeped in again, my hand, you would never see it above a waist, or even you would be lucky to see that left arm getting very high. I really can't lift my left hand up. It's hard to get shirts on without pain. So the neck has created a lot of mobility and pain issues. It's one of the reasons why I lost so much weight. I heard a lot about the weight loss, and it wasn't healthy weight loss. Down a pant size, down a shirt size. So I was grinding it, and I thought that would help. I spent a lot of time on porches, and I'm willing to bet, some of those folks I stood on their porch and talked to just didn't even vote. One thing I found knocking doors is a lot of Democrats here believe it's a red county, and it is not. I mean, we got data to prove it wrong. I remember on a turf packet, there's like a map on the front with all these little black dots. And I would show them the map. Hey, this is your neighborhood, and these are all the Democrats living in your neighborhood. What you're saying is wrong and inaccurate. You're being disenfranchised by the Republicans, and that's sort of been their MO. It's that whole "if I utter it, it is true," and folks really grasp onto that. Oh, somebody made an utterance of something. That's how Trumpism came to rise, right? Because you get this fool carpetbagger from New York that jumps on TV and just says things. And people are like, oh, man, he ain't got no filter. So we got to combat that kind of thing. And it's tough. We need to remind the Democrats we're here. We need to get these folks to vote, get up off the couch and vote in non-presidential election years.
Yeah. I often say that if you know the secret formula for reaching the low interest voter, sometimes low information, but that's kind of a pejorative, low interest, to reach those people, whether they consider themselves Democrats or just middle-of-the-road independents or whatever, if you know the secret formula for doing that, you will be the richest, most successful political strategist in the country or the world, because nobody knows how to do that. Every once in a while, somebody figures it out for one race and then thinks that they've got the formula, and then it doesn't work on the next race.
Yeah, and South Carolina is very special. At a federal level, we don't get a lot of attention, and I get it. There's a lot more effort that needs to be put into the state to make some real changes around here. And we stem the tide on the red wave nationally. And I'm so proud of that, so happy of it. I wrote postcards for Raphael Warnock down in Georgia, made phone calls for him, threw him some money, did everything I could to support that federal effort. And that was what was most important. Sometimes in South Carolina, we get a little possessive of Jamie Harrison. But now that we have beat that red tide, I would like to see more federal support from the DNC. I would like to, let's bring George Soros's money truck here. Let's, bring Bloomberg here. Because, really, that's what it is. Until we get some of these wealthy Democrats to come sprinkle some, seeds of cash in these elections in our state, we're not going to be able to stem the tide. So, and I'm also a big supporter of, if I ever run for office again, I'm going to, put Democrat on there. I'm no more of this, just the name and what I'm running for. I'm
looking at your sign over there on my wall. Yeah, it doesn't say exactly. Democrat. But John Karelevich was saying that the D next to your name in a lot of advertising and stuff, that's a negative in York County. You're going to say no. If you think it's a negative, it's going to be a negative, and if you don't, maybe it won't be. Maybe
it's because I have a progressive illness, but I don't believe in wasted time. I believe that any time put forth in an effort is well spent time. Yeah. Maybe sometimes that effort doesn't yield or produce fruits, but I feel like we're not in a position anymore where we can poo-poo too many things.
Yeah. Or maybe not fruits right away. Maybe we.
Yeah, and again, like I
gonna,
said, we have a multi-year battle ahead of us, and I am here to help fight that battle. I'm not leaving or moving or going anywhere. Yep. So I hope y'all are ready to, gird up and do this with us.
I haven't kept up with this in the past week or so. I don't know if there's been any movement on this, but there was talk about rearranging the primaries for 2024 and making South Carolina the first in the nation primary and not New Hampshire and not Iowa. What do you think about that?
I think that's great, personally. I think South Carolina better represents the multicultural makeup of the majority of our country, more so than New Hampshire and Iowa does. And at one point, those places had meaning, and at one time, those events had meaning. But, time moves on, and we move past things sometimes. And, it seems like a lot of folks are just holding on to this for tradition's sake. And I don't know if that's always the wise move. So I think this is a great idea. We saw what happened with Biden when he won the primary in the state. It was pretty much game over for the rest of the candidates after that.
Yeah.
But
and I think
when you look further back, Hillary beat Obama in South Carolina in the primary. So we have some value for sure. And again, I point more to we have a better racial mix in the state, and we certainly have a lot more black voters in New Hampshire and Iowa do.
So we can help the country find a candidate who better represents everybody. What would we get out of it here in South Carolina?
Hopefully that would bring in quite a bit of money to the state Democrat Party.
For the primary, but what about
long way?
Yeah, it would for the primary. A lot of attention in the primary.
And I mean, it would create a lot of buzz for the state. It would bring a lot of attention here. There's some, I wouldn't even call them tertiary, secondary sort of windfalls that would come our way, besides sort of being like this political nexus for the primaries.
Yeah. The state, I was living in North Carolina in the last presidential election in 2020.
Okay. I was living in Florida.
Yeah, so I didn't. So neither one of us saw the South Carolina primary from a close-up view.
No, I'm sorry. I was here for Biden Trump. I wasn't here for when Trump won.
So even being an early primary, there seemed to be a lot of attention on South Carolina for a white-hot minute.
Yep.
And then it moves on. So if we're first, it's going to be 5 white-hot minutes or 10, a little more, and then everything will move on.
So I feel like you're half right there. Jamie Harrison really did a lot to generate interest in the state and drive a lot of media attention our way in his race against Lindsey Graham. Unfortunately, it didn't count at the polls, but I do feel like that attention kept going in the last presidential election, due in almost exclusive part to Jamie Harrison's efforts.
The rearrangement of the primaries is not a done deal.
No, not yet.
But it does sound serious.
This is certainly the most efforts I've seen made towards making this actually happen and things like that. Sorry, I'm readjusting. Yeah,
you got to stay comfortable. Moving on. You had a little experience over at the town of Fort Mill. I was going to tell the audience in our need to get more people involved in the podcast. Not only are we 2 white dudes, we are the Fort Mill Mafia. We're both in Fort Mill. So there's a lot of York County outside of Fort Mill. Most of it is outside of Fort Mill. Fort Mill's not the town.
Fort Mill, just a little teeny tiny part of York County. I mean, there's York, there's Rock Hill. What else am I missing?
But Tega Cay's got a lot of people.
Tega Cay, I mean, they're kind of like baby Fort Mill. I know they don't like that, but
well, they got their own state representative district, so
they do, and we also have Lake Wiley. And
the first 2 drinking liberalies I went to were over in the town of York, and I very deliberately went over there to do my early voting because I wanted to see more of the county and more of the government in the county, and the very nice government building over there. I guess that's the county seat.
Yes, that's where I went to. I early voted in the primaries. But I early voted in the general, but in the primaries, I went out to York because obviously that was the only location available in the primaries.
Yep. Yeah. I guess that's not why I went. Well, that's why I went there because I had to. I wanted to early vote, but I wanted to just to see what was out there. So I walked up and down the main street and hung out in town a little bit. And then I went to the two drinking liberalies over the course of the year at the Towne Tavern in York, and met the folks from out there. And I
went to one of those.
Yeah. They were welcoming to the interloper from Fort Mill. And then I've been to the Tega Cay, and there's one, it's really, this podcast won't be aired in time for anybody to gear up and go tonight, but tonight is the one in
the one in Rock Hill, but it's the Fort Mill group, but they meet down in Rock Hill now.
Well, I imagine that they have a lot of Rock Hill people that come. I think.
Oh yeah, and there used to be like a core Rock Hill drinking liberally group. It just kind of fell into neglect, and a lot of those folks just dissipated to wherever, York or Fort Mill, as far as their participation. So, in the marketplace, the Mercantile is a great place to host that friendly confines, if you were. I wouldn't mind if it came back to Fort Mill for a special appearance. It would make it convenient for me. I know it sounds incredibly lazy, but sometimes I just don't want to schlep it down to Rock Hill.
I think,
and the Mercantile isn't really a restaurant or a bar. So, but
they do have food and some drinks.
They do. I've been going to drinking liberally for a while before I was ever a candidate for town council or state house. So, I was an active participant with them well before they ever relocated down to the Mercantile. So that's a great core group there. Did a really powerful speaking engagement with them. I want to say in October, leading up to Election Day, with Nichelle Newton and Carla in conjunction with me. It was a really great appearance.
Yeah. And people say, drinking liberally, obviously a play on words, but it's not getting drunk.
It's a social setting for like-minded folks to come together and talk. Again, I always point it away. We all support and advocate in our own ways, and I think that's a great way to do that.
Let me go off on a little bit of a tangent, going back to the idea of the constituency, the voters out there. Democratic Party is a big tent party, but especially in primaries, parties tend to be driven by their more extreme elements. Now, right now, the Republican Party's extreme element is getting all the attention out there. But the Democratic Party has, if I call it an extreme element, these days that word extreme is got connotations that we don't want to apply to it because they're not. We're not invading capitals and tearing things down. And we may have a few individual
members. Last I checked, I've never seen Democrats wanting to hang the vice president. So
when we've had Republicans, and one of the advantages of being old is I've been around for the elections of many Republican presidents. They're disappointing. They're distressing. They're not the end of the country. They're not the enemy. And I'll make jokes, and we'll make snide comments and things like that. Everybody does that. But until Trump, they were the president. They were the senators. They ran the country, and we tried again the next election. Doesn't seem to be the case these days. But within the Democratic Party, we will have moderates, centrists. We will have people more and more progressive to very progressive. And I'm not going to say it's all 100% good feeling out there. A highly progressive Democrat will look at a moderate Democrat with some side eye. It's like, I don't know about you.
Yeah, and I don't know how to divine these deviations anymore. It's very difficult for me. Like, am I a progressive? I am absolutely pro-marijuana across the board. Pro-marriage. I don't really give a crap if you want to marry a tree. The government shouldn't tell you whether or not you can get a marriage certificate. If a church doesn't want to perform the ceremony, that's fine. The church has the right to do that. But I don't believe the government should be denying Americans constitutionally guaranteed rights and privileges.
If you were to just ask me without any qualifications around it, are you a centrist? Are you a very liberal? I would say I'm kind of center left. And then if you start picking at the specific policies that a lot of them you just mentioned, I keep lining up more and more progressive. So apparently I'm not as center left as I thought I was.
One of the things I heard often knocking doors is, you don't look like any Democrat I've ever seen. And I don't even know how to digest that sometimes. And I know how I looked. I mean, in a camouflage hat, wearing a flannel shirt with hiking boots on. But, that's just comfortable to me. I'm like dressed for comfort and I cleaned up my image somewhat to run for office because, one of the first things they say is, they don't want some sloppy looking schlub showing up at their door or, some crazy looking hippie, especially in South Carolina. So, I try to keep my hair nice and trim and my beard nice and trim and dress in a more appropriate way than I normally would in my personal life. But it was just, that's always a tough one to digest for me. It's like, should I be wearing a 9-line shirt or, some 511 tactical gear, 1776 shirt?
I noticed that when we went from the first video that we made together, you started adding things like a blazer every now and then and a button-down shirt. You made a chance. You just gave me my opportunity because I've remembered the name I was trying to pull out. And at some point, you had mentioned that you recognized the similarity between you and a major Hollywood star. That you looked somewhat similar, and now I'm going to put up a picture of two people that I think I see some similarities in. Do you recognize any of those guys?
So the Seth Rogen thing is like a running joke in my family. Prince Harry, I don't get too much. I mean, they're obviously both younger than me. So those two dudes look like Matt Vilardebo. Matt Vilardebo doesn't.
Yeah. And you don't have, apparently you don't have curly hair.
Yeah, no. My hair gets wavy when it gets longer. I'm actually going to try and grow it out and go for a little bit of a different hairstyle since I got so much online frustration with my hairstyle.
Okay, so look at these guys and look at these guys for a second, and then look at this guy. Okay,
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, and then these guys, and then this guy. So there you go. I remember.
Can't beat it. I mean, it's uncanny.
Yeah, all of the time we've been talking, suddenly that name popped into my brain.
Very good. Yeah. It was funny on one of my political ads, somebody left a comment saying, vote for Seth Rogen, he'll legalize weed.
Yeah. Let us move on. Time is a-flying. I'm having fun.
Oh, yeah.
Are you having fun?
I'm having a blast, man.
Audience, are you having fun out there? Yeah, I hope so. So a moment ago, I showed a picture of Matt. I showed a picture of some people who look like Matt. Here's the guy who looks like Matt. It's even got your same name. Do you recognize this venue?
Oh, yeah, that is Town Council.
Yep. In Fort Mill. So again, we're going to play the Fort Mill Mafia for a moment, and let me roll this clip here for a second.
Before I begin, I'd like to thank Mayor Savage and all our esteemed councilpersons for their service to Fort Mill and for allowing me to comment here tonight. Real quick, I see that Fort Mill is divided into wards, and something that has always come to concern me, even with this redrawn map, isn't so much the map, it's this thing with the wards. We don't have single member districts in this state, so a lot of this kind of feels perfunctory and like it doesn't have a lot of meaning. Mr. Hudgens, for example, lives in his ward, but everybody in Fort Mill votes for Mr. Hudgens representing his ward. If we were to make a more meaningful change to the districts and the wards, we would move towards single member districts, allowing real representation within the wards. Otherwise, I have no problem. I know we need to do these things. I'm not sure if the town has ever considered adding additional wards. We're soon to have several large construction projects populating this year, all those townhomes along the southern bypass near Catawba Ridge High School. They're all townhomes, multifamily units, whatnot. So in the next 10 years, my guess is we're going to probably see another 126% population growth in this town. And I'm just concerned that the current setup and the lack of real representation within the wards is doing a real disservice to this town. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much again for your time.
Hold.
Oh, yeah. She held me.
They want to talk to you for a while. So, do you is your public speaking like really on point? Were you nervous getting up in front of the town council?
No, I'm not at all. I mean, some background on me. When I was in college, I used to counter protest the Klan and neo-Nazi rallies.
Wow, that sounds fun.
I used to work as a bouncer in my late teens and 20s. So confrontation is not new to me, and it is something I handle very well now that I'm creeping up on 50. I don't fly off the handle. I don't lose my cool. It is very rare that you see me get flustered or agitated. So I wasn't even remotely nervous. I thought I was just going to deliver those statements and maybe there would be a comment or two back. But what came next, I was not prepared for.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Your point is that because everyone is running for an open seat in the town of Fort Mill, in the wards, there's 5-6 wards. This came as a surprise to me the first time I voted as a resident of Fort Mill, which happened pretty soon after I moved here, was that I was presented with 4 names. Vote for 4, or vote for 3, or vote for 4.
3. It was 3.
3. Not because not every ward was up for election the same year.
They're staggered. Yeah.
So why am I voting for 3? Why don't I vote for the candidates that are combating for my ward?
And then the at large.
Yeah. But they're all at large, and they represent a specific ward. Their voters are from the whole town.
Correct.
Didn't make any sense. So I talked to John Vilardebo about that, and his John Vilardebo. Good job, Gary. John Kralevich about that. And what he said was that it's a holdover from Jim Crow. It's a holdover from keeping a minority, which in this case going to be mostly our black residents of Fort Mill, from gathering enough voting power in their area to elect a town council member.
That is correct.
So their vote is diluted by being part of the entire town.
That's what perpetuates a system where, for the most part, we have like these town elites constantly winning these seats. Good guys. I mean, listen, I haven't met a town council person yet that I think is a bad person or an awful human being. I don't know if all of them are really cut out for the job. And that's more my concern is that town growth of 130%, that's all people not from Fort Mill. So to me, when I've got now video of the mayor tearing into me with this "you ain't from around here" sort of attitude of hers, I feel like that should really frustrate those 12,000 or so folks that moved here in the census years.
Yeah, that would be people like me. This goes on for a long time. I'm going to play a little bit of it, and I don't have it really edited.
The majority of the folks that developed these wards wanted to ensure, and I can say this from experience, in fact, they wanted to ensure that every section of town was represented. It was for the best of reasons.
What?
The very best of reasons.
What?
It wasn't to eliminate, to isolate, or to do any of the things that you might have read about in other places. It was a very small community of people that...
So, you see where she's going. She's talking about stuff I never brought up. My guess is she's seen my social media. She's a Ray Felder supporter, obviously, because she's a big Republican. So I think a lot of this that I'm hearing is built up tension over the way I am being so outspoken and kind of having that call out mentality that I have. And I know when I was running, I reached out to Mayor Savage and tried to set up a sit down with her. And that went really well until we had to actually arrange that sit down. And then she ghosted out on me and I never heard from her again. So I'm not, all those folks up on that dais, I've either met or shook hands with, except for maybe 2 who refused me. But Alan Garrison, Ben Hudgens, Chris Wolf, Chris Moody, those guys know me very well. And I don't know what they're going to say when I'm not standing right in front of them. But when I'm standing right in front of them, all I ever hear from them is what a great guy I am.
Yeah. I just grabbed a quick still frame. And this still frame is a representative of what she was talking to you about. She was taking you to school.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
giving you a lecture about the way things are and the way things have been here in the town of Fort Mill.
I don't think the mayor really understands about me is that I am very plugged into Fort Mill. I don't think you're going to meet a more Fort Milly person than me, other than maybe Anna Culver, who runs Fort Mill now, who incidentally isn't from here. And I'm deep in that Paradise community. Brandon Upson, who's the chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party Black Caucus, was with me in that Paradise community. I do fundraisers in that community. I'm there. I made promises in that community, and I've kept promises to that community. I'm just not trying to win votes. I'm trying to uplift Paradise. It's, you drive through there. The only time you'll ever see an elected official in Paradise is when they're rededicating the George Fish Memorial. And Chris Wolf and Chris Moody were the only ones that showed up. Ben Hudgens, who was elected to represent that ward, wasn't even there. So, to be lectured by the mayor like I was tough. But you can see I sat there with my mouth shut and I took the medicine.
Yeah, you didn't.
I don't know what all made it, but let's keep going with it, because I love seeing this on playback. It happened so quick for me live. I haven't seen the playback yet.
Every section of town was represented. It was for the best of reasons, the very best of reasons. It wasn't to eliminate, to isolate, or to do any of the things that you might have read about.
That you might have read about. Those are exactly the things that John Kralevich was telling me. It was to eliminate. It was to isolate.
And I don't read about it. I live it, is my point. I'm out there knowing it.
Yep.
So let's go.
Here's giving you that lecture.
In other places. It was a very small community of people that worked in the mill. And we were all very much aware of each other. So the we in Fort Mill was very unique and very good. And it was all sanctioned by and organized by the state. We didn't get to go out and take a dart and throw it at a map and say, this is going to be this district and this is going to be this district.
What she's talking about there is the redistricting.
I was well aware of this too. I read that FSA report that was a whopping 4 pages long.
Yeah.
So I was quite prepared. Again, it's frustrating. I think people forget my level of preparation sometimes, and I don't come off maybe I do come off half-cocked. I don't intend to come off half-cocked. I am ready to go, both barrels blazing. Matt Vilardebo is the tip of the spear. You point me where you need to go, and I go there.
Yeah.
So, the way she's talking at me now, you see me sitting there kind of stone-faced, shaking my head, being a good listener. But in that internal dialogue, I'm just rolling the hell out of my eyes right now.
Yeah. But you maintain respectful position.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Except at the end there, I did kind of lose it and drop a cuss word, but that was kind of funny too. It's hard for me not to cuss, Gary. I'm not going to lie. I have a pretty foul mouth.
And by the way, I don't think we have any restrictions on saying bad words here on this podcast. But there's a
so I said the word
button we can
shitty.
push.
I believe the word shitty came out of my mouth. Or shit, or some form of shit. But, I did tell her, I said, listen, anything I said wasn't meant to disparage you or anybody before you.
Yep. So Fort Mill has had to redraw the ward boundaries because of population growth, uneven population growth. They got the information from the census.
Well, and just to clarify, the town did not redraw the wards. Those folks are in no way qualified for that task. A state government agency, whatever your title would be, pollster, strategist, statistician, cartographer.
Yeah. But for all that discussion, once again, none of that was the point.
Correct.
The point was, why don't we elect the representative to town council from the district, only from the people in the district? And if you want to have a couple that are townwide at-large representatives, that's fine too. But why not have the people in the district elect their representative, and only the people in that district represent, or their ward elect them? And
we're big enough to do that now.
Yeah.
We were too small for that in the beginning. So let's make that argument. Let's, because the powers that be in Fort Mill are not going to hear these Jim Crow arguments, even though we know they're true.
Yeah.
So let's just say we were doing it the old way because, let's like take it from an electoral college point of view, right? The electoral college existed because population wasn't big enough and communication issues on the West Coast and East Coast and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So things were done that way in the old days out of convenience and lack of population size and density. Well, now we clearly do not have that problem with 132% population growth in 10 years.
Yeah.
So
We can do
let's and that was my point. And the maps are squirrely, but I know they didn't draw them and they're going to approve them anyway. But if you look at Ward 2, which is Ron Helms's ward, that thing goes from state line to downtown, touches a little bit of Paradise, includes South Dobies. It is the only one of those districts that makes that sort of cut through the entire town. There's no way that 70-something-year-old dude is representing every single neighborhood in that ward. And we know this because, I'm out and about and doing things, The only consistent faces I see are Moody and Garrison, followed by Wolf and Hudgens. Those other folks never show up at things. The mayor only shows up at things where she's going to MC. And, great. They're all from here and were born and raised here. And I think that's awesome. They have a lot of skin in the game and they've watched a lot happen over the years. But I also think you've got folks like me and others who have a world of experience and didn't grow up inside a 16-mile bubble. We have been out in the world. We've moved. We've taken on challenges and found like a bigger sort of view of life. It isn't that I'm trying to, folks like me and others are trying to change Fort Mill or make it something it's not. I came to Fort Mill for small town. There's nothing I want more than to preserve small town Fort Mill.
Yeah, it's going to have being the closest suburb to Charlotte across the state line. It's going to have a hard time staying small town.
Exactly, but I'm on board with that. I'm not. It's like I said when I was knocking doors, or like I would get approached by Republicans in public who wanted to debate me, on Main Street, Fort Mill. Matt Vilardebo is not coming to take anything from you. I bring liberty and freedom. I'm like the last sentinel of liberty and freedom in Fort Mill, as far as I'm concerned. So it's frustrating. There's a lot to combat, and it's been going on for decades. And there's a bigger sort of giant that has to be awakened.
I want to give them some props for one thing. They got some media talent there. They are able to show the Fort Mill Town Council meetings with some pretty good looking media.
Yeah.
I will note that it's not live and it doesn't come out the day of the meeting. It's delayed by several days, and some of them appear to be delayed by a week or more. So I'm not sure why they can't do live. It seems like they ought to be able to do live. But I
recommend people come. I have set up my entire year's work schedule to make it to every single town council meeting except for the one in February. So if anybody would like to go in February and attend the Fort Mill Town Council meeting in my stead, please reach out. I'd love to have you there, and I can give you some notes so you can at least make a public comment. Like I said, there's a group of us who have formed an informal community advocacy group. A lot of it centered around public education, but public education is one of those trees that sort of branches out into other areas of concern.
Or other areas of concern have been working their way into public education.
Yeah, you're gonna see folks regularly from our side of the fence at school board meetings, town council meetings, county council meetings, showing up in Columbia. I personally am not going to just sit around and wait. I'm going to go make things happen and bring things to this county that we need to make the changes we do.
And once again, we can go back to the idea of engaging the constituency, engaging the electorate. Hard thing to do. And
it is.
You're here on the podcast requesting, exhorting Democrats from the area to come to the meeting with you, and probably maybe one or two. If nobody takes you up on it, you won't be surprised.
And I won't be upset. It's just the way the ball bounces, right? Until we chalk up some wins, I'd say, and what have we done to make people enthusiastic? I get it. It's the rank and file, or as I used to watch a lot of pro wrestling, so the ham and eggers, if you were. We need them to get excited. And these municipal elections are a good way to do that.
So if somebody if somebody comes to a Fort Mill Town Council meeting with you, you're not going to be there February, but in March, if somebody says, well, I'll go with you, Matt, what are they in for? First of all, it's going to be boring.
Yeah, it's super boring. Sometimes there's some interesting things going on there, but it's more of let them see us there. Let them know we're breathing down their necks. Let's watch them. What you find out real quick is that the mayor really guides a lot in the town, and the council members tend to be a pretty unified group right now. I know there somebody has to be like some sort of voice, whispering something, but I'm hopeful we can get the mayor out of there for sure. And I just don't know. I mean, it's still so early in the municipal election run. We're not going to know who's running for what, or for re-election, or anything until the summer at the earliest. This year we have 3 town council members and the mayor up for election. And then in 2 years, we'll have 3 town council seats open for re-election. Okay. And those are the 3 that I ran against, if you were, Garrison, Hudgens, and Wolf.
Okay. And now the Fort Mill Mafia will return the program to the rest of the county. You applied for a Clyburn fellowship. What is that?
Correct. So Congressman Clyburn has a fellows program. It's like a politics leadership academy, if you were. It kind of helps you with strategies for managing county party mechanisms. It gives you some experience in fundraising. I understand there's some things they're going to teach about social media, which should be interesting because I know a thing or two about social media. I'm looking to learn a lot. For me, knowledge and learning, that is not a destination. It's a journey, and it'll never end. So I'm always looking to absorb something, get a rub from somebody, and keep my mind open to learning new ways of thinking, new ways of doing. I do not have this figured out. I am only on my 2nd attempt at running for office in a state where the odds are greatly against me. So there's a lot I need to learn, absolutely. And I do have aspirations of being county party chair whenever that opportunity presents itself. And okay. I do have
I think that's another
aspirations of running for office again. Yeah. So
both of those good fodder for upcoming shows, because they're
absolutely
not immediate, but coming up. Do you have any introspection, any idea of what it is inside Matt Vilardebo that makes you want to do this? Do you, when I think about starting a podcast or something like that, it usually starts from a fever dream about 2:00 in the morning when I can't sleep and something pops in my head and said, I can do this.
I don't know. It's like hard. I mean, without getting too deep in the weeds, I've always felt like the outsider, like the little guy, but I have a big voice. And, when I was a younger, more hot-headed kid, I had big muscles. And so I was both vocal and physically able to kind of not be bullied and to be like that person that sticks up for people who get picked on. So I've always kind of felt the need to stand in front of things for others. And then when the Parkinson's came, it just really amplified that sort of characteristic. I have a buddy that I talk to a lot, and he refers to it as meaningful suffering. There's those of us out there who are willing to kind of shoulder the burden for others and be the wheel on the wagon that sort of holds it up for the team. That's kind of how I see myself. I know others might look and see something different, but I get that. But for me, that's kind of what drives me. I always tell people, I like talking about the scene in The Dark Knight, the Christian Bale, that second Batman movie that Christian Bale made. Everybody's seen that, right? It won Academy Awards, so it's a good one to reference. It isn't just some nerd reference that folks won't get. That scene when they're on the ships where the Joker's got the bombs on the 2 ships, and that one prisoner who's played by Tiny Lister comes up to the woman and says, give me that. Let me do what you can't do. This is my lot in life. I do these things. So I've always kind of felt that compulsion, you know what, y'all sit home and vote. I'm going to go put myself up out and for public ridicule and to be called a pedophile and all these awful things online.
They did that, didn't they?
To further our Democrat values and to at least be out there saying, we don't all feel this way around here. There's another way. So that's, how I kind of roll.
An opportunity for a stump speech. All right. They did call you a pedophile, didn't they?
Oh,
somebody.
I mean, it was bad. I mean, groomer. We had one guy. I had to actually get an attorney involved. He ended up getting kicked off of all the social media, meta social media platforms. I mean, he told people I was a registered sex offender. I mean, there's calling me a groomer and a pedophile, trying to like extort, those right-wing tropes, blow those dog whistles, if you were. But then there's like going and saying Matt's a convicted sex offender. That's just, that dude posted that on the SCDP public web Facebook page. I mean, folks saw that. It wasn't just me or Krelovich. I mean, I'm sure I had friends and people who respect me see that. And I mean, that's not, I wouldn't want to see that about you or John or Dan Dunn or Mary Clark or somebody that I really care about and respect. Carla. I remember when Carla was a victim of some harassment from Scott Shirley. I tore that dude apart online and put him in a stroller and sent him home. Every party has folks that have a level of intensity, and I know my intensity is probably somewhere up around a 12. So, and I'm cool with that. So I'll go do those things. If I see somebody getting kicked in the dirt, I'm going to jump in and, put somebody on their ass for it.
Audience, only two more things. Only two more things here on my rundown. The South Carolina Supreme Court. We had some good news from them a week or so ago.
Yeah, they overturned the abortion ban. You can now get an abortion in this. You can still get an abortion in the state, but this whole ban up to 6 weeks was deemed unconstitutional, and rightfully so. But of course, now they're looking to replace all those Supreme Court justices. You know,
so we're currently it's 21 weeks, I think, is the cutoff in South Carolina. I believe I'm correct there. By the way, I fully understand it's two white guys talking about abortion.
Yeah, and listen, one of them is endorsed by Planned Parenthood and good friends with Vicky Ringer. So. But I've had extensive training from Planned Parenthood on how to discuss and address these issues with sensitivity and depth.
And the other one, that would be you. The other one, me, spent a couple of years in the early morning, in the cold, in the rain, in the snow, in the heat in North Carolina, standing out as an escort in front of an abortion clinic 3 days a week. So I believe we have some bona fides, but
kudos.
Yeah. But I mean, it's for the women, and yay, the Supreme Court, which I think surprised the legislature.
Absolutely.
Struck down. It's been sitting in the Supreme Court for a long time. A law that South Carolina attempted, the South Carolina passed and had been held in abeyance by Roe v. Wade. And then when Roe v. Wade was struck down, suddenly South Carolina's law said, well, here we are. But the South Carolina Supreme Court said, wait, they stayed it, and then they finally rejected it. So I believe we're at 21 weeks. And then I saw a story in the Washington Post pointing to South Carolina saying, yeah, good news, but don't celebrate too hard, because the Republicans in the state legislature have ways of changing things on the Supreme Court, and that is going to be their goal. It might not happen immediately, but they're going to worm their way in. So if they're getting rulings from the state Supreme Court that they don't like, they'll change the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court judges are picked by the legislature in the state. They're not voted on. So, and they serve 10-year terms, and then they get reelected by the legislature after that 10 years. Yeah. And it's a real complex process. We're not going to get too deep into it, but I do, for those of you watching, go research that a little bit. It's a real interesting thing to find out. We're one of, I think, 2 states that still does it this way.
I think we're almost done. I wanted to give one more shout out to the Drinking Liberally folks. It is now in 3 towns.
That's right.
First, it's the Thursday Drinking Club. The first Thursday will be the one in Tega Cay. we were at a place called Model A Brewery.
Yep.
Which Dan Dunn set up.
Who are you and what is this?
I'm Dan Dunn, and this is the very first Drinking Liberally gathering here in Tega Cay at Model A.
And what is drinking liberally?
It's a bunch of liberals getting together and drinking and having fellowship.
Recognizes that probably didn't have enough forethought because we didn't have a reservation. They don't have a meeting room, and they were doing bingo night. So It was loud.
It was very loud.
We had a trouble squeezing a lot of people around the table, but 25 people showed up, and some people showed up and said, "Can't handle that," and then left and went to do something else. So we're going to try something different. The last recommendation I heard was going to the Towne Tavern in Fort Mill, which is not in Tega Cay, but it's not too far from Tega Cay.
It's in Tega Cay.
Okay. Well, gerrymander the
they closed the one in Fort Mill.
Yeah. Well, gerrymander the line for Tega Cay to come down Highway 160 a little bit. But they have a meeting room. I don't know if it's available on that first Thursday night.
We'll see. I hope it is. It's easy to get that room. So we'll see.
Yeah. And if we can get 20, 25 people coming to that, that'll be great. The folks in York, the meetings I was at was up and down. I've seen 15 or 20, and I've seen 10. But
yeah, I think when I went, there was like 12 or 10. It wasn't super big.
Yeah.
I didn't expect a big turnout from that. I mean, York's definitely tiny compared to Rock Hill and Fort Mill and Tega Cay.
But they're enthusiastic. And
very much so, and important. I mean, my good friend and a dude who I massively admire, Michael Schoenfeld, lives out there. So props to you, Michael, for running for office, by the way, brother.
Yeah, I met Michael several times. Yeah, a good guy. We'll have him on the podcast. Everybody who's attempted to run or has run has a story to tell. And I think those stories are important to get out here.
Definitely, hopefully you can get Carla on. She's got a story to tell too. I mean, She went through it. She ran a great campaign. She broke the Cunningham curse. She performed better than I did against her opponent.
Yep. Okay, so the Fort Mill Rock Hill group, the Drinking Liberally group, is actually tonight as we speak.
Yep,
second
down at the
Thursday.
Mercantile.
Yep, which if we were live, that would help them, but this will come out sometime during the meeting and get posted.
Well, and real quick, let's talk. So for the problems we had for that first Tega Cay Drinking Liberally being too loud, that is the benefit of having an event at the Mercantile. We have the run of the place. It's never going to be too loud.
Yeah, because they're normally closed at that hour.
Yeah, they're closed to the public at that hour. And like me, I'm hearing impaired. I wear hearing aids. And even with the hearing aids in,
I'll speak up.
Yeah, I was struggling at Model A. I mean, Darlene was dying laughing. I had my ear like right up on her lip at times.
Yeah. And by the way, a shout out to Darlene. I was sitting there talking to her all night, and I didn't know who she was. We'd never met. I've seen her on Facebook all the time, and we. So
something I'll just leave you with as we're going out. One of the things that's frustrating about being a Democrat and these Democrat parties in the state, at the county and state level, is that we have an epidemic of 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. Darlene is one of the 20% of the York County Democrat Party.
Yeah, if the ratio is even that close to being balanced.
I've got leftover fingers on one hand and the number of York County board members that I saw actually campaigning for Democrats this last election.
So we'll have a chance to talk to them about that when they come on the show. If they come on the show. Yeah, it's your show. It's not my show. It's their show.
Correct.
So second Thursday is Rock Hill Fort Mill at the Mercantile. And then third Thursday is the folks out in York at the Towne Tavern in York, which also does not have a meeting room. When the weather's nice, it's got outside space, so you can get away from a lot of noise. The first meeting I went to was inside, and it was kind of noisy, but they put together as many tables as they could. And they never know how many folks are coming. It's not an RSVP thing. I mean, there's not a let's read the minutes of the last meeting and not that kind of thing. But if there's a candidate there, the candidate gets some time to talk.
Yeah, and listen, I want to, the organizers of those Drinking Liberally groups are mega, supportive, great activists. Mia Levitan, Dan Dunn, and Jimmy and Jeannie down. They all do an amazing job, and they are definitely big cogs in the machine that make things move in this county. So I hope they are listening, and if they are, I would like them to know how much I appreciate their efforts.
We will do a Drinking Liberally show sometime soon, and let them come on and talk about their thing themselves. And we are done. I've reached the end. It's not like there's nothing else to talk about.
Oh, we could keep going.
but we're done for now. Audience, go watch Colbert or something, and we'll see you next time we do a show. They're not regularly scheduled, but hopefully sometime in the next week or so, we'll be back with another show. Bye, everybody.
Y'all take care.